That might be it. What's going on, world? Jack of all spades CLT, back like a spinal cord. Yes, y'all, we are in season 4. And as always, I am the beloved one, DJ Spellman. To my left, the pride of Africa, Kenwa BB.
Yes, it's the pride of Africa. And you know I always shout out the African nation, but this year I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to do this to diaspora.
Diaspora, you had it right.
All right, diaspora. So I'm going to shout out to Haiti because it was their Independence Day a couple days ago. So when this come out, shout out to Haiti.
All right, Sapase to all the Zoes out there in the world. Mm-hmm. Send it off on the right. We have the boy, Banks on the beat.
Yes, sir. Banks on the beat. Blue Water Banks.
3700.
Fat boy. Hold on. Let's we gotta get that. We gotta get that right. We knew we was gonna run into something at some point. New season, Fat Boy Tires.
3700.
Wilkinson Boulevard, the hub.
Hold tight, Marlo. Hold tight, Darius. Mm-hmm. They're not here today, but we got the one and only Shauna running the cameras today. What's up, Shauna? Hey. But today, the reason why we are here is for our special guest. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this individual. Mm-hmm. She wants to be a golden retriever in her next life. Miss Yogurt in a Red Solo Cup. We have Charlotte's own Katie Black.
Hello, I'm so pumped.
Let's go. How are you doing today, madam?
I'm awesome. How are y'all?
Awesome. I love it. We're good.
All right, now, whether you've seen the show before or you didn't, you're about to watch it right now, we got the flower segment. So for you, Katie, Providence High School graduate, Lynn University alumni, Masters in Mass Communication, must I say, podcast host, The Katie Black Show, which is now in its 6th season.
Big up.
6th season, I got to say that again. A part of the Queen City Podcast Network, nature enthusiast, guest on The Shy Show, the VCR Kids, and the Biscuit Podcast. I'm hungry. Tell me about that one. I didn't eat this morning. Tell me.
Literally. Do you want to know what the biscuit?
Yeah.
So it's part of Creative Mornings here in Charlotte. So I know the pandemic has changed a lot of things, but it's kind of just an after segment of those shows that they have here in town. I think it's once a month or something.
Nice. Okay.
And so that was all the shows, and I'm so excited about this. I love to go on other shows and be in other people's arena, and so it's always nice to not ask the questions
and be asked.
Yes.
Sure, we're glad to have you. Well, if there's anything before DJ comes,
no, you're good. I just was doing my hands.
He's about to hit them.
Yeah, oh boy.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about your background? Everything I just said.
It's, oh my gosh, how much time do we have here?
Journey.
Plenty.
My background, so I was born and raised here in Charlotte, went to Providence High School. High school, didn't really love high school. I've tried to psychoanalyze what that's about, but loved Charlotte. And I was telling you guys before we started, love connecting with people that are also from Charlotte or grew up here and share that experience. Went down to South Florida, had no idea that Boca Raton even existed. Okay. Didn't have great grades and also didn't have my heart set on anything locally statewide. And so my mom's friend who was into colleges and stuff, or college recruiter, I'm not really sure her title, but was hey, check out this school in Boca Raton, Lynn University. And I was kind of why not? And so I got in and I was off, and I'm still trying to analyze what happened.
Well, the first question we got to start things off with is, of course, the picture. Katie Black Show picture. How old was you? What age was that?
So that was early 90s. I was probably 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Where were you at in that picture?
I was in the house that I grew up in, that my parents still have, near the staircase. Nice. Kind of I don't know if you guys are Harry Potter fans, but under, how Harry lived under the staircase? Yeah. Kind of if there was a unit under the staircase, I was right near there.
What was the occasion? You was dressed up.
Drip game. This. Yes, drip game was serious.
The visual was going to have What was the occasion?
I've tried to go back in the memory bank and see what that was about. I just remember, I don't think it was any special occasion. I think I was just like pimped out, and my dad was like, "We're gonna take a picture of you." And so I don't think I was that happy about taking the picture, but obviously years later, it has come in handy.
Well, let me ask this then. Why did you choose that picture for your show?
Yeah.
Because I think inside me is still that kid.
I like that answer, though. I love that.
Because, I've tried to like also, I keep saying analyze, but, growing up, I feel like I always kind of have like a smug attitude for really like no reason. And so I feel like, I feel like I've gotten nicer as I've gotten older, but I still feel like there's that like, yo, what up inside? You know what I mean?
Now, we know you're passionate about media. But take us where it all started from. What show inspired you to get into this industry?
So much. So I was always watching stuff that I probably shouldn't have been at my age, Val. But a couple things that come off Love Hard Copy. Do you guys remember that? That was like a salacious, trashy kind of 30-minute show of like tabloid stuff. So I remember like loving that. And again, this is like second grade. Started following the news from a very young age. Followed the OJ Simpson trial in the second grade. And that taught me about everything. Not knowing it at the time, obviously.
Okay.
And then the third thing was I followed Susan Smith, which was a psycho woman, I believe, in Union County, who had told the media that her kids were taken from her, carjacked. And when in reality you find out you're following this story, she actually killed them and pushed them into a lake in the car. So
I remember that.
Very traumatic to observe as a child. So I'm following this story of looking for these kids in this car. Where are they? And then, obviously I don't really remember what the time lapse was, but then you find out, obviously investigators are like, okay, this story is not adding up. And I remember with my babysitter at the time watching Full House, like on a Thursday night or something. I don't really, give or take. Obviously don't remember the exact day, but my parents were like at a party and it broke through on the news that like this woman, hey, you guys, we know where these kids are in the car, and this woman has actually taken her own child's life, and it's not this BS salacious bullshit story that she told of this man hijacking the car. And I just remember that just like rocked. Obviously, again, I'm in elementary school. I remember like going to the bathroom and like vomiting, and just from then, I know those are three different, angles, but all those stories like really made an impact on me as a child.
So you would say it's more so the developing of the story that got you into media.
Yes.
Got you. Is there any particular reporter that you kind of like, I guess, motivated you or try to mirror yourself to?
Ooh, love Oprah, love Barbara Walters, but like also just love all of them to an extent. Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes. I still go back in YouTube and like just obsessively watch how they interview. Love Johnny Carson, which is a different kind of late night relaxed vibe.
Legend.
But I just love the art of interviewing, and also to making people feel comfortable. I feel like, even Oprah and Barbara Walters, unfortunately, I've seen some old clips where like I felt like they like were inappropriate and made their guests uncomfortable. Right. So I'm obviously like not cool with that unless, one day I happen to interview someone who's a criminal or something, you know what I mean? Then it's like, of course it's valid to make them uncomfortable, but I never, I think it's like, it makes me uncomfortable. I never want people to feel uncomfortable. So, I don't want to make things salacious. I would rather them organically come up that way.
Okay.
Well, I got to big you up on that, though, because let's say I'm going to just use a sports reference. A basketball player is going to watch clips of Jordan, Dr. J, Larry Bird, somebody in the past, but there's a lot of people that want to get into the podcast game. But like you said, looking at old interviews of some greats, a lot of people wouldn't do that to kind of hone their skills. So I want to just big you up on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you have experience in boosting up traffic on social media pages. Can you share some of those tips with us?
I don't know if I have like the magic pill for that, but I think a lot of it is just like networking and like talking to people out and saying, hey, look, here's my social media, or, you know, asking people on the show, and then obviously they follow. I don't know if I have that, like I said, that magic one answer, but I guess it's honestly like being my own like plug, being my own network, like, and not having it come off as narcissism, is like talking about myself, talking about what I'm doing in town. And then also too, I've started to, since I am such a TBT or Flashback Friday person, I've started not only like sharing, obviously highlighting these interviews, but highlighting, hey, look, here's like Whitney Houston from like 1980 or whatever. Or, you know, here's an old school hit from the 90s. I've tried to like encompass some of that because I am so nostalgic.
What's the last old school hit from the 90s you played?
Drum
Give
roll.
it to us. Give it to us.
I'm trying to think. Well, I love Ace of Base. I feel like I might have shared them on my story. I'm trying to think of the latest one that I'm blanking on the latest one that I've shared. I've shared Whitney. I've shared also too, I think the 90s hit that I'm thinking of, and embarrassingly, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like one of those hits. I feel like since we were so like radio, or at least I was, but I know obviously we're in the same generation, is like radio was so important and so big. So sometimes there was a lot of songs that I heard on repeat, but I never knew, like could associate who it was, but like you would start playing it now and obviously I would know. And I feel like I feel like if they didn't make maybe the MTV connection of seeing their video, just like now, I can't recall.
Yeah, right. Need a face to put with the name.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so you've said that you are a born investigator. So what are some of the questions you've answered throughout the years?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've never, again, obviously you guys can tell I have a lot of conversations with myself.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
So I don't know if like, you know, my answer has been validated, but I guess circling back around to OJ Simpson, like I've analyzed what, not only, again, this is just my take, what happened, but the public's reaction, the culture, the society reaction of like why that was so big. Or I remember, again, watching random clips of like, again, as a young child, or even maybe like 10 years ago and not fully understanding it. Now I do. Why, when the verdict read, was people of color cheering and the white culture just like totally shocked? Like I wanted to understand that. I wanted to understand the domestic abuse aspect of like why that happened. The celebrity aspect, which is obviously Simpson. He was like the biggest. There was, you know, everyone wanted to obviously be around him, go to dinner with him in that like Los Angeles circle. And then obviously if you're a football fan, you know, I've talked to my dad about it and he's obviously not a West Coast fan, but like, you know, wanted to, for me to understand that time capsule of like, he was big shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I've answered that for myself of trying to understand that. I don't know. I feel like I'm just an investigator of whether it's trying to understand friends and relationships and just like anthropology, which I guess kind of dovetails off the Simpson case. But I just try to answer so many things. And I don't know how that comes off.
I think most women are born investigators, to be honest.
Yes.
It's innate.
Of like, well, I think social media is a different, like a different layer of like, it's real easy to backtrack and likes and things like that. But I've also just, again, I don't know how that's, but infatuated with crime. Cases of why people do the things they do. I also try to answer nature versus nurture. Are people born sick, or do they have a series of events, or is it a combination? So any, you know, or even, you know, I was talking earlier, I don't know, maybe I wasn't, about Britney Spears. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Yes, we were.
Pre-show.
Understanding that of culture, of like stardom, of family, like how does all of that like transpire, or like as far as law, the state of California, how did that happen?
Well, you said something about crime, and I just got into my headset from the research team. You and Ted Bundy. What's going on with that? There's a fixation there.
There is. My parents were like, please stop watching these documentaries specifically on Bundy. What is my connection to Bundy? I think I have no idea. Like I going into like maybe another like deeper segment. I feel like I've had you guys on the show like talked about past lives. I definitely feel like I've been here before and I lived maybe in that time frame. So I don't know if I was a news junkie and absorbed this story, because again, that was something also that I remember like being maybe like middle school watching these things about Ted Bundy. I think my weird analyzation of that is, again, how did that happen? And also how he grew up, obviously, in layman terms, he was a woman hater, right? But I think it also destructs this, again, going back to media and how we think of the way criminals are presented to us, which is they're scary, they look scary. Or, you know, obviously local media, no, like I'm not focusing on Sean, I'm talking about worldwide, likes to put minorities on media for 30-minute bubbles of like, this is what's happened. So obviously Bundy doesn't connect to any of those. He was this white guy who was quote unquote educated, who obviously women thought was attractive. And so that is intriguing to me, that someone who is white, quote unquote attractive, educated, can be like the nastiest son of a bitch you've ever met, and like preying on women, essentially like, hey, can you you know, my car won't start, can you help me to my car, like playing all these like different roles. And then also, you know, he got out of jail like 3 times, like escaping essentially. And it was because like, I don't know, I mean, I don't know if you want to attack law enforcement, or no one was paying attention to him, or like they thought he wasn't a threat. So it's like, how did you guys let this guy go like more than once? No one was watching him and he jumped. And obviously he unfortunately one of those times killed some other, you know, female individuals. But I'm even fascinated at how he was such a serial killer and was so good at it, which I don't really know how you can be. But so that part is fascinating in itself. But that like towards the end when he was on, you know, on his deathbed in jail, the FBI came to him and was like, please, can you help us out? Can you give us any tips of like how to like catch people like you or what people like you do? So that nugget was fascinating. And then I guess the last nugget is, you know, when he was like put to death, the crowds outside the Florida jail that gathered and loved to like was cheering on his death, right? I mean, even though it's sick, I did laugh. I saw a sign that was like, have a seat, Bundy. But just the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know? And of him being this psychopath. I'm still trying to, in my head, analyze the difference between sociopath and psychopath. And one is more obvious that they're sick in society. And the other one is just as sick but tends to blend into these groups. And so that's what Bundy did. He went to college, he joined the Mormon church, and I could keep going, but it just...
Like I said, we knew there's a fixation
I
there.
didn't know. So.
Yeah.
And also, real quick, I think another psychoanalyzed thing in my head is like, I feel like I kind of looked like a lot of his victims. Which was, he tended to, the majority of the women that he killed had dark hair and dark eyes. So I'm like, could I don't know, there's a...
Damn.
don't know.
You're thinking about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do ask people at parties when I'm comfortable with them, would you have gotten in Bundy's car?
That's an interesting party question. But let's lighten up the mood. So, can you share some of your insight from the time that you spent working at Fox and AE? Then, can you please share any crazy stories, if you have them, about transporting reality TV stars?
So, yes. So, post-college, I got into the production world of reality TV, which is essentially like contract work. Transporting talent, just, you know, a lot of like the Vine kids, or I was thinking about this. Who was the individual that played on the Panthers that had a brother that was like Vine famous, or do you know what I'm talking about? It was like
no clue.
Okay, well, I dealt with, and he ended up
fan here too. So.
And he ended up, one of the kids ended up getting arrested. So I dealt with like a lot of the transportation was a lot of like Vine kids, and when I say like kids, I mean like late teens, early 20s. And so that was a lot of, I mean, I think I was looking at them from a place of like, I don't really know a lot about you, so I'm not gonna like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But just entitlement. thinking that they were like the best of the best. But I mean, obviously I can't lie, like they were polite. But I think as far as a celebrity crazy story, I didn't transport her obviously, but I do have a reality TV Britney Spears moment. So I worked on X Factor when I was in South Florida. And so this was the season where like Simon Cowell, Britney, Demi Lovato, were the judges. Mm-hmm. So I several times, and this is like circa, 10 years ago. So this is before, any of these things that we've heard in recent years of her being under or the extent of the conservatorship and rights. But she would walk and literally her manager at the time, Larry Rudolph, and her parents were like right behind her. Like anytime I saw her, they were like right behind her. And obviously at the time, didn't really think anything of it. Now looking back, a little odd. But I guess my exciting moment was there was a moment where people, so before, or just as you guys do here, like, you set up the cameras, you make sure all the angles are right for the height, everything's ready to go. So when it's time to go, you don't have to worry about that. So there was a moment where someone's like, hey, who's 5'4" back here? And I'm like, I'm 5'4". And they're like, they kind of like looked me up and down a little bit. And they're like, okay, well, we need you to go out there and sit in Britney's chair because they're going to get the camera angles because she's 5'4". So that was like my exciting little
stand-in.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, now you have a quote here that says, "Today's celebrities are not celebrities." Can you expound on that?
So I think when I think of like major celebrities, I think of, I don't know why this popped in my head, but like Mickey Mantle or Michael Jackson or the Supremes or Elvis or Elizabeth Taylor.
Heavy hitters.
Yes. John Wayne. I mean, the list goes on and on. Janis Joplin. So today's celebrities, I guess what I mean by that is they're in our face, and for maybe we don't always know why. So I feel like there's a lot of people that are quote unquote celebrities, but you're factoring in where's the talent? Like what's the connection to like why we know you? And also too, I think another level goes into like social media, which is back in the day, you'd open maybe obviously magazines and maybe you'd catch the news at night or newspapers and you'd see celebrities. And now it's just like constantly in your face. So it takes away the, I guess the magic because it's just constantly, that's what my father says, like, Katie, if you curse all the time, you're taking away the magic of when you use it.
I like that.
You know what I mean? And so I feel like that's, obviously, I know not all people think celebrities are magic, but
like the mystique.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's gone when it's just constantly in your, it takes away like, okay.
Now, do you think social media hurt media or you think it helps media?
That's a good question. I'd say it's like 50-50. Right? So I feel like, yeah, it hurt media because even too, so my parents are big nightly news fans, whatever, the major cable network channels. So it's like by the time I sit down and watch it with them, I know it all. I've gotten, granted, I've signed up for BBC updates, CNN updates, like TMZ updates. So I'm just constantly like reading it all day. So again, there's no shock value when you turn it on at 6:30. So I think in that sense, yes. But then also too, I feel like social media gives voices to the voiceless, right? So, I've talked about it on my show, like 2020, like without social media and the George Floyd video, that was key, monumental in all that starting. Because I feel like had people not had their phones and their cameras, would it just have been like another case that maybe the state would have known about, but the rest of the country wouldn't? So I think it is so important, but also it can, again, take away there. I just feel like there's no such thing as breaking news. You know what I mean? And also real quick, like I feel like with the social media thing, it's also in the aspect of it being negative. It's negative because anyone can write anything or post anything.
Everybody wants to be first.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't mean that it's right.
Exactly.
So, okay, you just said that, right? And then you said social media provides voice to the voiceless. in turn, do you think that everybody deserve a voice that should be heard, or could I know you give anybody a platform to stand on, anything can be said, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. So they're having like issues as far as regulating social media, and they're trying to put in laws to regulate social media. Do you feel like there should be some kind of regulation in place to where not every propaganda get put out, or is just hey, it's the First Amendment, everybody should have the right to put out, and you just filter what you want to read or watch? How do you feel about that?
As I swallow.
I know it's a lot.
While we getting deep in it.
So I do think that like everyone should has the right to like say what they want. I mean, as like, right, we're like talking to like everyone really does, but I feel like where it becomes tricky is that like you have to have, and not to sound hierarchy, like you have to have an evolved brain or like soul to be like, you I guess my thing is like you need to know what in your heart or how you were raised or morality or whatever, what is right. And so something that someone posts shouldn't like completely like sway your soul as a person. You know what I mean? Or even I think this is like the debate that I have with Facebook. And I mean, obviously they are, I was telling them off mic, obviously the Zuckerberg's an alien, but besides that, why, and I mean, I'm sure someone could come and debate, why is it Facebook's fault if you're a dumbass? You know what I mean? It's almost like reading, I mean, it is a messy subject, but I guess to answer your question, like, I do believe that everyone has the right to share whatever belief or whatever story they've experienced or anything like that. But it's like, it's up to the consumer, which again is all of us, to ask, who is this person? Like ask the questions. Don't just
fact check.
Yes.
Like YBB's comment about the Nas album and Jay-Z.
Shots fired.
It's all love. Okay, so we've had a ton of black women on the podcast talking about their struggles in the media space, even entertainment and business too. With being a minority in a male-dominated space, can you speak on some of the struggles you might have faced?
I guess the first thing that like pops into my head is essentially not being paid the same as my counterpart for doing the same amount of work, if not more. But I think a lot of my experiences as a woman, I don't think I've really had light bulbs go off until recent years of really assessing, because I know that even though I'm a minority in a gender, like I'm not a minority, but, I think just, maybe also too, like male dominated, just not being taken as seriously, unfortunately. And then also being aware of like not letting someone not taking advantage of me of the way that I look, or that I'm a woman, that I'm a sexual object. Like I'm still like bringing XYZ to the table, not saying that like these things have actually like transpired in my life, but just like being very well aware of the world that I'm living in and the industry that I'm living in, as far as women not being paid enough, not taking seriously, or just looked at as just just being aware of all of that. But I'm sure someone could argue that every industry, a female should take those things into account.
Okay.
100%.
Agreed. Now, quick transition. Do the names OBriens Irish Pub, Blue Martini, or Nipper's Bar and Grill mean anything to you? If so, can we get the story?
Yes. So I went to school in Boca, and all those establishments are in Boca, except my understanding Nipper's did close recently. So RIP.
RIP.
RIP. But so those were like my hangouts. So I went to a unique college where obviously we had some sports, but there was no like football pull. So we would just go out and experience this like South Florida life. So like Blue Martini was like essentially like this club without it being a club, and it was like smack dab in like the center of like the mall area. So like very interesting. Nippers was a late night like party. Like when everything closed at like 2 or 3, like they were open to like 5 or 6 a.m. They did the greatest pizza. I'm a big pizza person. OBriens was honestly like my more so my senior year, kind of like a Cheers. Like that was like the hole in the wall, like hang.
Nice. So no crazy stories that you want to
Oh my gosh.
share with the Jack of All Spades Nation?
I remember one time Nippers. This is like not like crazy. I'm sure you guys have heard worse, but like I just remember like outside Nippers, and this was like in my like crazy like haze like drinking phase.
Hey.
But I remember like talking to someone right outside and just like being all normal and just being like, I'm sorry, hold on one second. And I just like went around the, like not even around the corner and just like went and just like puked. And it was just like, you know, like when you like drop not water balloons on the ground and they just,
Yeah.
that's what it was like. But like the South Florida way was like, you throw up, you re-enter the party, you know?
Oh, shit.
Those moments of realization in the club is just crazy. You to feel that.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, it was good. So, you've been working on your first novel, Madam. What is it going to be about?
So I'm not sure on like it's up for debate as far as like the title, but the novel was actually my experiences in South Florida were so crazy that I've always loved to write, but I just started writing them down because I would talk to people back home and they'd be like, no way. So I'm like, I'm going to forget all this stuff. So I just started writing. And so the first book is literally, you know, creative nonfiction, if you will. So it's like, you know, based on my life, names are changed, but just was around a lot of crazy people who were involved in crazy things down there. And so I was like, I have to almost make notes that this is happening, that I've experienced this, that XYZ happened. And not to say that like there isn't crazy people in Charlotte or crazy experiences in Charlotte, but I just felt like a little bit like this is so unrealistic. And I don't know. It was, am I making it salacious enough to want to get one day?
I want a sample.
Yeah.
I want to hear a sample of one of these. It's a Florida story too, so it's always like a Florida man story. So
yeah, and I was the Florida woman.
So do we have like a ETA for when this book will be coming out?
Yeah.
I wish. Hopefully my goal for another 2022 is like to get it published at some point in this year to like get the ball rolling. I think that back in the day when I had like finished and completed it, I tried so hard to get it published and it just was never happening. And I kind of refused, and maybe this is naive of me, but refused to do the Amazon thing where just anyone could upload it. Yeah. So I kind of had it shelved, but I guess the like silver lining would be that like I started writing about some experiences that I had in Charlotte. So I don't know if that'll offtake something else, but you know, what is it? My mouth to God's ears. Hopefully this year it'll happen.
Yeah, manifestation is real.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, to take it to sports for a second. I know I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Who is your favorite all-time Carolina Panthers player? All time. Take your time.
So I'd have to say Steve Smith. Steve Smith.
That's a good one.
Ice up, baby. Ice up.
Yeah.
I just the 04, like that whole 03, like teams of like, and obviously I was a huge fan of Delhomme too, because I feel like they were obviously connected. But Steve Smith, I mean, like
that attitude, I like that attitude about
just unbelievable, just absolutely unbelievable. Even like, I don't even care that he like beat up his like teammate. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm kidding, but like, you
Jordan did it too.
I mean, you know, I just thought his attitude, he had a personality. He wasn't this like, I feel like I shouldn't say a lot, but some of these sports superstars that I watch, or even on LeBron's like barbershop show, like some of them are just like very like, it's almost like political, like robotic. It's like, did someone like prep you? I just want you to be real. And I feel like I just enjoyed that he was real, had a mouth on him, and like ran like hell.
Does a lot of good work in the community too.
Yes.
So big up Smitty.
Before I get to my next question, I want to circle back real quick to the Katie Black Show. Now, what can people expect from the Katie Black Show?
I would say that's like the $1 million question. So I guess I just want, obviously not all the time, but for people to laugh, for people to be entertained. But I think my mindset is, and I could be totally wrong because obviously I don't have that many statistics for me at the tip of my hands, but I think the majority of my audience is white. So I want white people to listen to people that are not like them or have had not their experiences, or even beyond that, like trying to interview like LGBTQ people, you know, sharing these experiences of these people's life that they would not have otherwise had. And I think the seed was planted just as a kid, kind of ironically. I mean, this might sound like a joke, but like the majority of the white people, and maybe even today not as much, but like the majority of the white people that I've always been surrounded with, like always would disagree with me. So I was like, this is insane. You know what I mean? So I felt like I wanted to, I mean, I don't know if that was like actually the mission at the beginning, but like, hey, like you think XYZ, well, why don't you listen to such and such story of what he or she experienced? And then you can't argue someone's experience. So I always like, again, so to be entertained and to like take away something that someone wouldn't have known otherwise. Like, so I guess make it intimate.
I like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So that kind of leads to my next question. So if you was handed the keys to a media company, what would you do to make it stand out? Or would you want that responsibility?
I think now a lot of the things that I've seen and just observed from all the weird stuff that I've read, I feel like I could. I could. I would want a millennial-based crew, employee-based. But that doesn't mean that obviously I would judge anyone that was older. So I always say millennials or 1981 to 96, but I would like, you know, expand it to maybe, you know, Y2K, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, like have all different cultures be the employees. Like obviously a full white employee cast would not fly with me. Asian, people of color, LGBTQ, or even like, you know, I'm starting to now educate myself on like non-binary and transgender, just like an encompassed of all different people that can come to the table and like analyze the news, analyze what's going on.
Okay.
I got one more question before we move on. So I'm kind of big on media myself. And this question is more so going towards, you got your master's in communications. How do you feel about folks who enter the media space who don't have the actual like education base behind it, like the actual master or bachelor in getting my words right,
It's all good.
communication? How you feel about that? Do you feel like it's fair game, or you feel like, hey, they should go ahead and study up, get the quote unquote education behind it before they enter the space into media? How you feel about that?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it can be a combination. Obviously, I want people that have the background, but obviously, I'm not gonna, you know, shun away people who like don't have the education. I mean, yeah, like maybe like, hey, come on board. You've done X, Y, Z, or you haven't. Like, learn it, or to read this book, or watch this person. You know what I mean? I think again, like going into media, you have to be, I mean, obviously this has not been the case, but like for everybody, but you have to be, I think if you come in with an open mind, I feel like that's game one, you know? Or even too, like, as far as the media, like, obviously I lean like quote unquote liberal. Obviously I'd want someone conservative side. So, you know, just all of it together. But I know I'm getting off topic as far as like the communication background, but just, no, I think that, you know, I and this is something that I've realized as I've gotten older, like not everyone has had the opportunities or the financial things to get an education, so they like shouldn't be shunned against because of it. Again, as long as you come in with an open mind and you love news or you love sports or you love some aspect, I feel like that's all I could really ask for, as long as like the individual would be like willing to learn as we go too, you know?
Okay.
So let me say this before we get to the last question. So if you don't know Katie, everything that we do here at Jack of All Spades is concerning hip hop, and just that conversation there. So I'm gonna pull the curtain back a little bit for the fans. So Wabibi is actually in school to get his journalism, master's in communications, all that. So I know that's why he asked that question. But for the listeners, Mickey Fax, New York rapper, he said this quote, and I love it. I say it to my students: formal education will get you a portion. Self-education will make you a fortune. So even if you do go to school, you have to do some stuff on your end, like you guys were just talking about. So yeah, you might have your master's, but there's still some stuff you can do on your end to take you to that next level. So I appreciate you asking that question, and I appreciate that response.
Yeah, sometimes experience is the best teacher.
100%. But now, Miss Katie Black, we are now at the most popular segment of Jack of All Spades Nation. We call it Top 5 Dead or Alive. Shout out Man of the Year in Hip Hop 2021, Jada Kiss.
Versus Killer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You had to do my boy Fab like that, but you definitely had to do Dipset like that. But, Miss Black, we know pop culture is your drug. What are your top 5 MTV shows?
Drum roll. So I'd have to say, obviously, TRL.
Okay, TRL.
Carson
Right?
Daly, big up.
Right? Music videos. Daria.
I was waiting on that. I was waiting.
Daria.
Some of the listeners might be too young for that.
I know. Dude, you know what I was like thinking of? I was like, speaking of news, I forgot about this until recently where I like saw some clip where like every time that they would watch the news on that show, it would be like Sick Sad World. And like that.
It's kind of true.
Yes.
It's always depressing, the news is. Never really
Yes.
happy. Well, yeah.
So shout out Daria.
Yeah.
Shout out MTV Cribs. Welcome to my cribs. One day I would like look because I just thought that was so awesome how they like open the door and like, what up? Welcome to my crib. Welcome to my like however many cars they had or whatever.
Who
Or
was your
didn't have.
favorite? Who was your favorite individual on there on MTV Cribs? Or one that you remember the
Okay,
most?
so two, if I can say Mariah Carey.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Obviously,
Yeah.
she's like, oh, and then
Legendary.
she'd like hold.
Her
You remember when
closet.
her like dog or her dog attacked her cat? Just the whole thing was like crazy. And she's like, this is this level, this is this level, and I thought it was props to her. She was like, I'm not going to show you guys my bedroom because that's private. I thought that was props. So loved that and loved kind of like obviously an NC mind like being like, how do you live in New York and like have all these like levels, like what the fuck. And then also the Osbournes. So
That was a good one.
my understanding, and I didn't like obviously make the connection at the time, but I guess them doing MTV Cribs opened up the network to like, we should come back and just like film them.
Yeah.
This is crazy. So I'd have to say those two.
I like his dark room. It was dope. No windows, nothing, just straight black. It was dope.
Your honorable mention, Redman, MTV
Redman.
Cribs.
Oh yeah. Ringing the doorbell with the wires.
All right, so we need two more.
Two more.
Okay, so again, was too young to watch it, but The Dating Game. I love that. Like, I just love the whole. Or it wasn't The Dating Game. It was it was a
name, right?
Jenny McCarthy. It was like
Yeah.
what was it called? I'm blanking.
Ain't that where Rude Jew got to start? What did the Jenny McCartney say? Like,
No, she had a show,
She
but
had a
like
show
it like
later, but there's a dating show. I know what you're talking
gosh,
about.
I'm blanking on it. But y'all know, like, Singled Out.
That's it.
Yes!
Ding,
big
ding,
up,
ding,
Katie.
ding, ding.
Big
Singled
up.
out. And then I'd have to say 5 is True Life. Like, you think you know, but you have no idea.
damn.
Yes, you think you know, but you have no idea. Love biographies. So
Hold on, wait, before we close out.
Go ahead.
What is your feeling of as far as revamping shows? Do you feel like media in that space is kind of dying because it keep on revamping shows? There's no new shows coming out. It's always a revamp and a revamp and a revamp. How you feel about that?
I think it's, obviously, like, very rarely can you, like, make gold with remaking stuff like that. Very rarely. And I think, too, honestly, and I find, like, kind of like this with movies, too. It's like, you guys are lazy. You guys don't want to pay writers. You guys don't want to pay creative content to, like, stop. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's almost like my dad always said, like, the sequel very rarely ever encompasses what the first one did of a movie trilogy or whatever. And so I feel like the same with, like, revamping these old shows, old movies. It's like, okay, maybe it works like once in a blue moon, but like this is old hat. Like, yeah, like pay people, hire people, they can do it.
Yeah.
Do you feel there's a shortage of writers, or is just they just type the checkbooks?
I think it goes back to money. I think again, kind of like spills into like why reality TV show is still this like part of culture, which I'm a druggie for that too. But it's just like they don't want to like how much cheaper is it to just film people living life than have a writer's room, right? And hire actors.
For sure.
Unfortunately.
True. All right. Well, Jack of All Spades Nation, you've heard the.
Oh.
Whoa.
One more.
Get it, YBB. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Streaming services. How do we feel about Netflix? How we feel about Hulu? How we feel about Amazon Prime? How do you feel about those streaming services? Are you more so pro streaming services or traditional cable? It's just in the media space. Talking about media.
Cable, baby. Cable.
Really though,
I am.
I'm just saying. But based on your last response, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, they're giving those creatives those opportunities to
Absolutely. Well, I mean,
put that new content out.
Of course, I can say that, and I'm still obsessed with streaming services. But I was even too, like, again, talking with a friend of mine of, like, again, dream scenarios, like, what would you, like, maybe, like, want your show to become? I'm like, I would love it to be in, like, in a TV format. And he's like, oh, well, what would you want to be on? And I would say cable.
Cable.
Because, again, with streaming service, I know this might be an eye roller, but I mean, it is elitism. I mean, you're having to pay. I mean, not that cable's I just feel like, to me, cable, unfortunately, can get across to more people throughout the country than certain streaming services.
This is true.
So that's why I say that.
You're right.
Oh, he stumped him. Now, for real,
Yes,
for real.
for
Jack of all Spades Nation, you've heard the wild and crazy stories about Miss Katie Black. Please shout out all the socials so that people can follow your movement.
Thank you so much. So check me out on Instagram, The Katie Black Show, KATIE Show. I'm on Twitter, same handle. If you want to follow me personally, which, you know, hey, why not? And I try to entertain people on that too. It's at Black1K Katie 87.
All right, so now I have to ask this question. Who is the voice that introduces the Katie Black Show?
With like the little
The little girl voice.
Oh, it's actually, so that's so funny. So for a long time, people thought that it was like me at a young age that I'd recorded, but it's not. It's actually my good friend Emily Wine in Columbia, her son. He's so
cute. Yeah.
cute. And it happened obviously a few years ago, and I just was like, hey, do you mind if I have your kid say the intro? And she was like, absolutely, because his voice was obviously like, I just thought it was like precious.
Yeah.
Nice touch.
Yeah, you definitely, it's memorable. I'll say that.
Yeah, your eye for detail, I love it. You're very, very, for what you have and what you put out is dope. I like what you do.
Thank you so much. Well, obviously, like I know you guys, flowers. I know you guys are all about flowers. Flowers to y'all, and I've told you this, of just like actually doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
For real. So give props to y'all as well.
And we failed to mention this to Jack of all Spades Nation, but this is a show for a show.
Show.
Go please tap in with Katie Black to hear YBB and Banks on her great platform. But it's close to that time. You know how we do things. I am the beloved one.
It's your boy YBB. Shout out one more time to Haiti. Happy Flag Day.
You're Blue Water Banks, Fat Boy Tires.
And of course, the wonderful guest, Katie Black. Any parting words, madam?
Well, obviously, I appreciate all of you. This has been an amazing experience. And honestly, like 2022, let's do it.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. New vibes, new tribes, maybe. I don't know.
Like that. like that. Now, Jack of all Spades Nation.
Speaking of tribe.
Speaking of, matter of fact, you, Katie. Speaking of tribe, you know how we close every episode out. So one time for a Tribe Called Quest, rest in peace Malik Taylor. And if you don't know who that is, that's Phife Dawg, aka the 5-footer. But tell your mother, tell your father, send a telegram, and we out.